Let's bring on Brent Axe, Syracuse reporter for Syracuse.com, who follows the program very closely. Good morning, Brent. Roger Weiland, Zach By, Albany, New York, ESPN Radio.
Morning, guys.
How are you, Brent?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. What is your thought on Jim Boeheim? Let's start there because Zach did an interview with that I heard earlier from Boeheim. Listen to this, Brent, and I'll let you react to it.
I don't know what's etched in stone these days. I really don't. There's a plan in place, and we're going to see what happens. But basically, right now, I might be done this year. Wow.
So, Brent, you think that's realistic?
I apologize, guys. I didn't hear that clip. You're going to have to fill me in on the fly here.
Well, he just said that there's a plan in place and nothing is etched in stone, and this could be his final season.
Oh, is that the one from the Dan Patrick show you played?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, here's the thing, guys. I was listening to that yesterday, and while it is notable that a hard deadline exists now, remember that deal came out a couple of years ago from the university that next season would be his last. Boeheim has said that 100 times. I've heard Jim Boeheim in past years say, who knows, this could be the last year. I think in the way he does that, it's kind of in the same way of, who knows, guys, I could win the lottery tomorrow. I think that's his way of saying, look, I'll look at it after the season. Only Jim Boeheim knows when Jim Boeheim's walking away, even with that deal. If he holds to the deal that the university put out a couple of years ago, then that's after next season. But, he could walk away after this year. He could try and negotiate with John Wildhack, the new athletic director, to go beyond next year. Only Jim Boeheim knows. And I think you just look at how strongly he refuted the Pete Thamel report from Sports Illustrated, because Pete had cited people around Boeheim that, he was trying to get past, next season and was trying to work out a new deal. And Boeheim strongly refuted that, saying, only I know. Here's the thing, though, Roger. Boeheim has never publicly basically acknowledged that he'll follow the deal. Okay, that's why he leaves the window open. He acknowledges the deal's there. He acknowledges, here's what the university said, that next year is my last year. He has never agreed with that, though. He always kind of throws in a we'll see or we'll try and work it out, or like what he said to Dan Patrick that you played there. So trying to solve this riddle is a tough one, even if you followed Syracuse for years. But would I be surprised if this was his last year? Absolutely not, because he wants to go out on his terms.
And you also wouldn't be surprised that if he somehow can figure out a way to stay longer than even past next season. You wouldn't be surprised there either.
Not at all. Jim Boeheim's a coach. That's his life. That's what he does. And if he can stick around a little longer and keep doing it at a high level, he wants to. Now, the other intriguing thing to throw this conversation even further down the road, Roger, is you got to remember Boeheim said a couple of years ago that he does not want a farewell tour. He doesn't. He at the time, Derek Jeter was retiring, and he said, "I don't want the Derek Jeter retirement tour." So that's noteworthy. And if that line holds, then that means he wouldn't want to coach next year and have that be his last year, right? Because he has said on the record, "I don't want the retirement tour." Now, it wouldn't be the first time Boeheim has said something, and the opposite happened. He can contradict himself sometimes. That's what makes him such an interesting guy to follow and cover here in Syracuse. But he has said that, so that's interesting to know too.
Brent, what's the mood of the administration like from Syracuse? How do they view this? Are they okay with Boeheim kind of flying by the seat of his pants in terms of they don't know if he's going to stay next year or be done this year? Are they looking forward to the post Jim Boeheim era, or are they willing to just let him decide and hope that he stays?
I think they're in a spot. I think, if you look at how Kent Severeux, the chancellor, put out that deal a couple of years ago, it was interesting because he had just taken over. Syracuse was going through NCAA sanctions. Remember, they also announced at the time that Darryl Gross was going to be removed as athletic director. Mark Coyle came in, had a cup of coffee as the athletic director at Syracuse. He's gone. Now John Wildhack is here. I asked John Wildhack about this on my radio show last week. And, the way I phrased it was, we're in a political era now. I said, John, is plan to still have a peaceful transition of power between Jim Boeheim and Mike Hopkins after next season? And Wildhack has maintained throughout. He's been very careful in how he words it, but he has maintained, when he's been asked about this publicly by myself and others, that there is a deal in place, and our intention is to follow that deal.
We're talking Syracuse basketball with Brent Axe, Syracuse reporter for Syracuse.com. I will say this about Boeheim this year. I think he's done a good job, all things considered, with this team, because I don't think this team is up to the normal Syracuse standards. I think talent-wise it's okay. I don't think it's one of his better teams. And then you look back at the way this season started, and the blowout loss at home to St. John's. I think overall Jim Boeheim has done a pretty good coaching job with this team. Would you agree with that, Brent?
I would agree with that in this sense, because they are not the traditional Jim Boeheim defensive team. This is not a good team on defense at all, and I'm not telling tales out of school there. Jim Boeheim would be the first person to tell you that. He has said it a number of times that they've got to outscore people to win, and they're more comfortable when they play that way. And it's not a matter of bad coaching or anything. It's just you got to look at, you had 2 transfer players come in, 2 freshmen that you had to try and incorporate in the lineup, and maybe some veteran players that weren't playing up to Boeheim's standards in that 2-3 zone. So they had to find another way, and they have. And it's just been amazing to watch how this team, I've joked around, Roger, that what Boeheim should do at the start of the game is just point at the scoreboard guy and say, put 12 on the board for the other team. Because this team is comfortable when they're behind. You know, that's coaching. That takes coaching and strategy and leading players through that. The players kind of take on their own will, and you know, John Gillen's been great in those spots, and everybody's kind of taken a turn on the team of kind of being the guy in those clutch moments. But considering all the new faces, everything they had to come together, and what you cited, they had to, you know, they have not a non-conference win of note. They're losing by 30 points at home to St. John's. They lost to Georgetown. They lost to Connecticut. They started off roughly in the ACC. They had to find their way, and just at the right time of the year, they have. It's never easy with these guys, and that's something you brought up. It's probably not the most talented team that Syracuse has had, although Boeheim felt it was at the beginning of the year. It just hasn't rounded out that way, but they're finding a way. And, you know, I think they got to beat Louisville on Sunday to really feel good about their tournament chances, but this is a weak bubble this year, and this is a league where, you know, if you got 9 wins, that might be good enough to get you in the tournament.
Yeah, they're at Louisville on Sunday, CBS game, 2:00, so prime time. We're talking to Brent Axe, Syracuse reporter, Syracuse.com. Brent, so you don't think they're in right now? I mean, with the victory over Duke on Wednesday night, another storming the court at the Carrier Dome, and the big win, you don't think that's good enough? You need more work to be done to make sure they're not this bubble team come Selection Sunday? I
mean, if you really push me up against a wall and got an answer out of me, I think they're in based on, because here's something all the bracketologists agree on, Roger. It's a weak bubble. And if that's the case, then Syracuse qualifies to get in. What I hesitate to give Syracuse lock status on is this. They do not have a non-conference win of note. I mean, they blew it in non-conference play. You mentioned the losses they had, the 2, you know, real noteworthy non-conference teams they played, Wisconsin and South Carolina, they also lost to. They also have a bad record on the road. You know, their ACC road wins are 2 of the worst teams in the league. So if you go to Louisville on Sunday, you erase any doubts of the strength of your road schedule. Last year, Syracuse got in based on the strength of their non-conference schedule. I mean, when the committee says they look at the whole season, they were right in that sense, because Syracuse's non-conference wins, which they got in November, you know, in the Battle for Atlantis tournament, helped push them in. Now, that was also helped by a road win at Duke and enough ACC wins that pushed them through, and we all saw the result. You just got to get in, and they made a Final Four run. So based on this year and the bubble and how things are different, they're probably in. But if they want to feel really good about it, beat Louisville, and if you lose that game, now you have to beat Georgia Tech, in my mind, just to ensure that you're at 10 ACC wins and you leave as little doubt in the committee's mind as you can.
Brent Axe, Syracuse.com. Appreciate a few minutes on the Orange and Jim Boeheim and all of the above. A lot of SU alums and SU fans here in the capital region that follow that program very closely. We appreciate, Brent, a few minutes here on Big Board Sports.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.